This vaccine is he deliver his baby on the moving train, a bus that was never supposed to open by doctors. Like on the moving train. Okay. So the link to the video will be the description below. Go and check them out. So let's into this vaccine in 3, 2, 1.
The 1140 The 11:47 p.m. Eurostar from Paris to London was supposed to be the quietest journey
Paris to London, Paris, you la la.
of Elliot Vane's life.
Yep.
No conversations, no eye contact, just 340 miles of dark tunnel and countryside, and then
Interesting.
disappearance. A new city, a new name, a fresh start where nobody would ever connect him to the man on every screen in France. But
Yeah.
at 12:23 a.m., somewhere beneath the English Channel, Elliot felt the first contraction. It hit like a fist to the
Really?
gut, sharp, unmistakable, and absolutely terrifying. He was going into labor, alone, on a moving
Going to level on the train. That's good.
train, under the ocean. And the man who had put him in this situation was sleeping peacefully in a mansion 40 kilometers behind him, completely unaware that his secret was about to arrive screaming into the world at 200 miles per hour.
Wow.
Elliot Vane was 24 and broke when he walked into the Paris Conservatoire audition that changed everything.
Yeah.
He played violin like he was bleeding onto the strings, raw, painful, and impossibly beautiful. The panel of judges exchanged glances, and one of them, the oldest, leaned forward and whispered to the woman beside him. That older judge was Dominic Ashworth, 51 years old, legendary in the world of classical music, married to a
Classical
renowned
music.
cellist named Claire, and father to a 12-year-old daughter named Margot. After the audition, Dominic approached Elliot personally with an offer. Be the featured soloist for his new composition, Ashes, premiering at Carnegie Hall in 8
Carnegie
months. It was the kind of opportunity that didn't come twice in a lifetime, and Elliot said yes before Dominic finished the sentence. The first 3 months were purely professional. Dominic was exacting, cold, brilliant, and he demanded perfection in every note. But slowly, inevitably, the boundaries began to dissolve. Late lessons, lingering touches, wine shared on the studio sofa while Paris slept outside. Dominic told Elliot his marriage was dead, that he felt something he hadn't felt in decades.
Really?
Elliot knew it was wrong. The age gap, the power imbalance, the
Yep.
marriage, but he had spent his entire life being invisible, and for the first time,
Wow,
someone
really?
extraordinary saw him. The affair began on a Tuesday night in October in Dominic's studio, with rain against the windows and a half-finished score scattered across the piano. In December, Elliot started feeling sick. The nausea, the exhaustion,
Oh,
the strange sensitivity to smells.
yep. Yep. Ipanet. Yep.
He blamed it on stress. But when a doctor in the Marais ran blood work and found elevated HCG levels, and when an ultrasound revealed a tiny flickering heartbeat inside his abdomen, the world tilted beneath him. A spontaneous ectopic implantation, so rare that fewer than a dozen cases existed in medical literature. Somehow, cellular material had implanted in Elliot's peritoneal cavity and begun to grow. The baby was theirs, Dominic's and Elliot's, a child born from an impossibility and an affair. Elliot told Dominic on a
Uh-huh.
cold January evening, in the same studio where everything had begun. He had imagined shock, disbelief, maybe even joy. What he hadn't imagined was the way Dominic's face went completely blank, not shocked, not disbelieving, but blank, as if someone had just told him the weather. Dominic laid out the situation like a chess problem. The premiere was in 5 months. His reputation, his marriage, his daughter, everything depended on silence. He offered money, a significant amount, enough to cover medical care, enough to relocate, enough to disappear. When Elliot asked about the baby, something flickered in Dominic's expression, grief or
Oh,
guilt or love, but it was gone before Elliot could name it. The baby is your decision, Dominic said, but it cannot be connected to me. Ever. Elliot left the studio that night and didn't look back. He spent the following months alone in a small flat in
wow.
Bermondsey,
Yep. That's a baby bump. Yep.
watching his body transform in ways that filled him with wonder and fear in equal measure. His belly swelled. The baby kicked. He practiced violin for hours each day because the music was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. The
Yeah.
baby moved for the first time on a Tuesday afternoon in March, while Elliot was playing a passage from Ashes, the very piece he'd been meant to perform. He stopped, placed both hands on his stomach, and cried. Not from sadness, not entirely from joy, but from the overwhelming reality that this small, impossible life was real, and it was
Yeah.
his, and it was going to need him to be brave. By August, Elliot was 32 weeks pregnant
Wow. Yeah. That is literally a baby bump. Yeah.
and had decided to
Wow.
move to Edinburgh, far enough from London, far enough from Paris, far enough from anyone who might recognize him. But first, there was one last thing he needed to do. On the night before Dominic's premiere, Elliot traveled to Paris and stood outside the Theatre de Champs-Élysées, watching through the window as Dominic laughed and shook hands and accepted champagne, Claire elegant at his side, Margot smiling for journalists. He watched the man he had loved treat the world like everything was perfect. Then he turned, walked back to Gare du Nord, and boarded the 11:47 p.m. Eurostar to London,
Alien for the
telling himself
seventeen.
it was the last time he would ever think about Dominic Ashworth. The first contraction came at 12:19 a.m., the second
Oh.
at 12:31. By the time Elliot pressed the emergency call button and a young attendant named Sophie arrived,
Uh-uh.
there was no question. The baby was coming, and it was not going to wait for London. Sophie found a passenger named Dr. Amara Osei, a calm and competent obstetrician traveling to a medical conference, who examined Elliot with practiced hands and confirmed what everyone already knew. The baby is engaged, she said. Head down. This is going to happen within the hour. Henri, the senior conductor, had managed to radio London. An ambulance would be waiting at Waterloo. But Dr. Osei looked at Elliot with steady eyes and said simply, "We might not make it. The baby is coming." The delivery happened in a narrow sleeper cabin on a moving train, somewhere in the dark countryside of Kent.
Oh.
Dr. Osei directed Sophie and Henri with quiet authority. Sophie held Elliot's hand and told him he was doing brilliantly. The train rocked beneath them, a constant, rhythmic motion that became the backdrop to the most extraordinary night of Elliot's life. He could feel the vibration in his bones, could hear the faint rumble of the tracks, and when the final contraction came, Dr. Osei's voice cut through the pain, calm, directive, unwavering. Push, Elliot. Let your
Yeah,
body
put
do
you
the
can.
work. At 1:47 a.m., a baby cried. The sound was small at first, thin and reedy. Then it strengthened into a full, indignant wail that filled the tiny cabin and made Sophie gasp and Henri press his hand over his mouth. Dr. Osei lifted the infant and placed him on Elliot's chest. He was tiny, red, furious at being evicted from the only home he'd ever known. But his lungs were working. His grip, when Elliot offered his finger, was fierce. Elliot looked down at his son and felt the world go completely quiet.
Wow.
"Hello," he whispered. "Hello, little one." The story got out eventually, as these things always do. A nurse recognized Elliot from a photo in classical music circles, and the tabloids pulled the thread until the whole thing unraveled. The affair, the impossible pregnancy, the train birth, Dominic Ashworth's carefully constructed life collapsing in real time.
Hmm.
Dominic first denied everything, then expressed shock and profound sadness when denial became untenable. Claire filed for divorce. Elliot
No.
gave one interview, telling the story plainly and without self-pity, and then he stopped
You know.
reading the coverage entirely. He was too busy learning how to be a father. He moved to Edinburgh as planned, a small flat near Arthur's Seat, with enough space for a cot and a violin. He named his son Oliver, and he returned to playing, quietly, at small venues where no one knew or cared about his history. Dominic sought parental rights and lost most of what he wanted in court. The arrangement was
Wow.
simple: supervised visitation, child support, and custody that belonged entirely to Elliot. The visits were
Very good.
uncomfortable. Dominic arriving in expensive cars with expensive gifts, speaking to Oliver in the careful, performative way of a man who did not know how to love something he couldn't control. Elliot still plays at night, after Oliver is asleep. He sits in the Edinburgh flat with the violin under his chin and plays Ashes, not the way Dominic wrote it, but quieter, slower, stripped of grandeur and filled with something more honest. Oliver is 3 now. He has Dominic's dark hair and Elliot's careful eyes. He was born on a moving train, in the dark, surrounded by strangers who chose to help. And sometimes
That's good.
Elliot thinks about how different everything might have been if he'd chosen a different night, a different train, a
Yeah.
different life. But
Yeah.
then Oliver laughs, a bright, sudden sound that fills the flat like music, and Elliot understands that the chaos was never a detour. It was the journey.
Cool.
Some
Yep.
children don't arrive on schedule. Some
Oh.
arrive
Yeah.
exactly when and where they were always meant to,
Yep.
screaming into the dark, carried forward by motion, born between one world and another, with nothing but the sound of the tracks and a stranger's steady hands to welcome them in. And sometimes that is enough.
Wow. Wow. That was you deliver his baby on the moving train. A boat that was never supposed to open by Jakarta. The link to the video will be the description below. Go and check them out and drop a like if you like. And comment below if you want to see more reaction like this one. And subscribe if you're new. And click the bell so you can be notified when I upload and when I post and go live in my bye. Wow.